So last week I came out firing. It was negativity here and there, so much so that my podcast program just full on shut down on me. This time we're in good vibes territory because it's trade deadline week. That means trades, and more trades, and that just makes me happy. And I think it makes a couple other people happy too. We've got RJ, we got James, and we got Chris here, and they all love trades. And there's one thing I know for sure that Chris loves to trade. It's Gabe Davis, right, Chris?
I've never felt better hitting that decline button.
Hitting that decline button. Mr. Buyer, seller, buyer. James making all the moves. I think. Have you caught Goose yet?
I passed him.
Oh, good. I thought so. And then RJ got the top knot in a very nice, comfortable location, not necessarily with all the Pokemon cards behind him.
Nope. I had to move stuff around. Still
you
not
are
sure.
in a new location. It's throwing me off.
It's the same location. I just have a couch behind me instead of cards, and I'm not sure if I like the layout of the room. So
you've feng shuied your room.
Yeah.
Very cool. So speaking of feng shui, we've got a couple teams who are going to be shifting things around in the next couple of days, we think, to make sure that everything really aligns with what they want to do with their team here. So we're going to go through each of the teams, talk about whether we think they're buyers, sellers. If they're sellers, what are the things that we think make sense to move? If they're buyers, what are the things they should be trying to add right now? And if there's teams that we have no idea what they're doing, we'll call them out and say, we don't know what the hell you're doing with your team, so make a decision. And, we might disagree on a couple of these teams too. So it should be a fun. Hopefully it'll help generate a couple of deals. We'll have a couple trades come through while we're on the podcast. And then, of course, we'll get to post-pod, and the craziness will continue. So anything before we get going?
No. Other owners, feel free to hop on, talk some trades with us.
Absolutely.
It's quite fun.
Yeah. So let's start with our natural AFC North here. Going to go ahead and start with the Steelers. Looks like they're definitely turning to sellers. Really outperformed the first couple of weeks. Looks like, maybe they could be a year ahead of schedule with Winston getting injured, with Mack getting injured and benched, or whatever the hell's happening in New England. And then some bad luck at a couple other positions. They look to be sellers. The question is what? Receiver seems to be an area of movement. Jordan Brooks obviously would return a decent haul with his price and his production, but again, it seems that the Steelers is more inclined to keep him. When I was looking at the Steelers, I was thinking ideally maybe one of his receivers. Paris Campbell, again, former first-round pick, so I don't think anyone's exercising that option right now, but somebody who could be a good rental for a second or third-round pick. Jacoby Myers, that contract and that production, especially with the extension, should continue to look good. The fact that Elijah Moore didn't get moved to the deadline has some questions there. I think if he had found a new home, it would have been easier for Kyle to make a move there. But he's got good depth there. But I think if you looked to try and get some solid return from either Jacoby or make a profit off of Paris for what he picked him up from Green Bay, that makes the most sense there. What do you guys think? Anything else kind of jump out to you as good trade items from the Steelers?
I'm still jealous about that Paris trade. That was a fantastic trade.
Yeah.
I don't remember that one.
Several times to get Paris. I honestly think the Steelers is a full hold, though. I don't think he moves anything.
Let's see. So let me pull that trade up here.
I want to say one bold thing, and I might be wrong on this. I would profit off of the Denver tight end now.
Oh, Dulcich? Yeah, I think that role is fantastic. It was Lazard, the Browns punter, and a fourth for Paris Campbell, the Falcons punter, Ioannidis, and 2 seconds.
Wow.
So didn't get a first for it, but got both of Green Bay's seconds from it, plus Campbell. So if you can flip Campbell into a second or a third as part of this, that likely comes out to about a first in value for Lazard, which I think would be pretty darn good for breaking down a piece like that.
Yeah, when it comes to it, though, he's got $26 million in cap space. He's got a first, like 5 seconds, 2/3. He could just tag. He could pick up the tag on Campbell and pay him 15 and just roll into next season, draft what he can, keep building around what he's got. He's got a good squad, and he's been drafting well. I think I would just stick with what I got. You're probably not wrong with the Dulcich move or Disley. Sell on Disley riding high because Disley, with all of the injury history in the past, and Dulcich looking decent and John Bates getting more and more involved, it might make sense to try to profit there. But, Deo, can't pronounce his last name. Looks like he's going to get more of a prominent role now that they just lost Taekwon Lewis for the year. So he's looking good there. And
the only thing I'd say is technically he'd have to do the 5th-year option. Couldn't use like a random tag on him.
That's what I meant. But the 5th year,
yep.
I think the 5th year, though, is like 15 for him.
Same idea, yeah.
I think he's doing it the right way by not exercising it. Because
until the end of the year.
Well, at least until he knows he's going to be keeping it. Like after the trade deadline, you do it.
Yeah, I guess even though I'm an Ohio State fan, I'm pessimistic on Paris. He had a couple of games where he had a ton of targets and a ton of points as regard to that. I don't know if he's going to continue to see that, especially if they're going to stick with Stan Mellinger at quarterback. So
I don't know if you caught the game this week, but he had a touchdown. He just got PI'd. He was gone for like a 45-yard touchdown. He just literally got yanked from behind.
No, and he had 2 other targets. I mean, he scored well enough, but I don't know. You can see an archetype I tend to go for there. Plus, he's had a ton of challenges as well. So I'd almost rather, hey, I've got a window to get something for him. I'd rather do that than kind of have this dissipate again.
I agree with that. He's not a get a third of a team's targets type of receiver. He's a specialty type of receiver. He does 1 or 2 things really good. He's not going to get more than like 4 or 5 targets a game.
But no, James, I see your point. He's a best ball guy. He's gone. Like all he needs is that one deep shot a game.
It's not just that. Personally, I actually had him rated above his teammate Terry McLaurin coming out of college, and Paris got drafted higher than him. And Paris has looked really good to me when he's been healthy and playing. So I think I would just ride it and wait till the end of the year. If he's showing that he can do it, then I would keep him.
Right.
Yeah, the nice thing with him and anyone else that's on their final year in a first-round pick is you can declare that 5th-year option at the end of the year and then extend him because it gives you that extra year before rollover. So he can still trade him, at year end if he wants to.
It's also I don't know who's really buying him too. That's just the issue there. Because if you're a contender, do you want him right now? Probably. But are you ever going to pick up that option? No. Would he probably rather roll the dice himself, keep him? Yeah. Other teams that are rebuilding, do they potentially want to roll the dice to get him too? Either way, he's not going to get a whole lot for him.
Well, I guess I need to reach out to Steelers then.
I mean, seems like a potential asset that merits some discussion, considering we've got a couple of different opinions on it here. All right, let's move over to Browns. Clearly buyers leaving their division.
He's a seller. His team's falling apart.
That seems to be the style these days. Oh, you're 11-1? Yeah, just go ahead and sell it. Big thing here is running back. Again, Zamir White, 2.1 points in the year, so hasn't really gotten the opportunity. Samaje Perine really seems to have seized that 3rd down role, which is helpful. But with Denver actually going out and trying to grab another running back today to try and help things out there with Boone and Javonte down, he needs, with JK down. Does he still have JK? No, he doesn't have JK anymore.
He does.
He has,
yes,
JK's.
He's on IR.
Oh, okay. Yep. He needs to go get another running back. I'm not saying he needs to go get like an RB1, just another RB2 that can kind of platoon with Samaje and Gordon, help get him some points in the position. He's deep enough at receiver. I feel like if you wanted to move off some of those or some of his draft capital, he could go get the back he needed.
He seems weird. He hasn't been a big buyer in this league. He seems to move a lot more around the small edges. Like you see a lot of him dinking and dunking and picking up like Andy Dalton for just a little bit. Or
I dispute that analysis of him as a division mate. Like he added a ton of defensive guys in the offseason and during this year, and it's really annoying.
So my hypothesis with him is I think that, yes, Chris, you're right. He's going to wait until he's got flexibility to do some of the bigger moves. And I think he's going to make moves around the edges up until around this time of the year, where it's if I want to make a move, I have the most information possible. Now I'm going to make any kind of big moves or swaps. People will kind of declare themselves as they're either buying or selling. I know, based off as much information as I can, what the prices are going to be. Now is when I make a move on something. So I think he's probably got, I'd guess, 8 or 9 offers out there involving stuff like the Bears pick in 24 or things like that for some premium assets. And again, at this time of year, where just a rough count, I think there's about 14 buyers and about 18 sellers. So that very much lines up to playoffs and non-playoffs teams. So if you've got a market of 18 people who are playing for next year, and you've got an asset that looks like it's going to appreciate for next year, like this is the time to move it when you've got the most market to potentially sell that to. So I think that's what we're going to see here over the next 2 days is him cashing some of those chips to try and push him over the top.
Yeah.
But I do agree he has been very careful the last couple of last weeks. Again, going and getting Dalton to survive the Wilson instead of going and saying, okay, I'm going to go pay a first for Daniel Jones or a first for Jared Goff or stuff like that. Like he said, let me go get Dalton for a third or a fourth instead of paying up the big capital now and robbing myself of that opportunity later.
But yeah, I think he does need to make a couple bigger moves on offense. Like we say his wide receivers are deep, but none of them have performed this year outside of one.
Right.
It's a team that looks, obviously he's leading the division, so his team's been good, but the offense looks like it should be better than it has been. So either he's going to sit and hope that it does improve and just add a running back, or he'll say, all right, it's time to try to flip one of these bigger name guys for somebody that actually produces and treat it more like a redraft year here.
And I know we kind of, I don't know if he's actually selling, but Commanders, like, take Sky Moore in one of those firsts and go get like Mike Evans or go get Tyreek Hill. Like, you put him next to McLaurin and the depth of receivers here, and that looks real scary. I know Chris is like, Chris is like,
it's a terrible idea.
Shut the fuck up.
It just comes to the cap space then at that point.
Yep.
Because for him to do something like that, he essentially has to move off of either several guys, a Michael Thomas, a Terry McLaurin, a Melvin Gordon, or do something with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, his cap gets a lot less fun when his players start coming back later in the year here, and we can no longer trade.
Yeah.
There's a lot tied up there if they all come back, which I don't think they all are. Like, Barrett's not coming back, but he's not a big hit. But I think both Flowers and Dobbins should be returning later this year.
He probably just wants to cut Flowers.
Yeah.
Probably.
And again, he could probably dunk Flowers and save himself $3 million. Shaq, again, on that contract, you could probably move him and get a piece or a pick to add in some other things. I think he can get creative here towards the deadline. It's just a question of does he put the sort of effort behind it?
Yep.
All right. Let's move and talk the Ravens. Again, also buying in their division. Bit of a different set of what he's trying to buy right now. Could probably use a little bit of help on defense, but he's been getting by with sort of a best ball approach of who's going to show up this week. If I'm him, I'm trying to grab one more D end. I think Rasheem Green has had a good couple of weeks. Jones hasn't quite stepped up. Trying to grab one more rotational D end so that he's got two good options makes the most sense there. Again, hasn't made a lot of trades recently and actually moved off of Peyton Turner to get Rasheem Green. So, again, I think he's got either from a quarterback perspective or some picks perspective to be able to go add something at the end. Oh, he has no picks set? Okay. Sorry, he moved into you.
Yep. No, for me, I stare at his roster and I just see Josh Allen. Like, if we ever go to, actual edge, then you would cry about it. But currently, he's stuck at linebacker. There's rumors about him potentially getting traded. The production from him consistently just isn't there. And I feel like with the name and everything, you might be able to get a little bit more for him than he's actually producing. that could help him out in the DN linebacker to DN swap of some sort to get a more solid guy in there. But even then, past that, linebacker wise, he's only got 3 guys that are even close to 70, and Josh Allen got off his points essentially in 2 weeks. So he needs some help there too.
Right, and that's the challenge, is trying to go find a D end right now when, again, either Josh Allen at linebacker or Jimmy Garoppolo / Daniel Jones is your best asset to give at the moment. It's teams that are trying to build aren't going to want to add those pieces, except maybe for Allen. Whereas, it's just going to be tough to go get that D end he needs. But I think that's probably, if I'm him, when I target. So again, there's many ways to go do that. Convert it into a pick and then move that pick. Try and do a 3-way, things like that. So I think there's some optionality, but otherwise, he's got a well-balanced roster.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. There's this other team in the North. I don't know if we need to talk about them, but I guess we probably should. Also a buyer, the Bengals. Team that was definitely shook up a little bit today. Not shook up in a bad way, but shook up in terms of where his players are actually playing.
We've had a busy day.
Yeah.
A very busy day.
So just kind of starting from the top here, Nyheim Hines is leaving Indianapolis and going to Buffalo. TJ Hawkinson leaving Detroit and going to Minnesota. And then was there another one that you had happen?
I don't think so.
Phillips had some impact to him because
he's got a teammate on the other side now.
Yeah,
Chubb.
Yeah, first thing when I heard that deal, I went and looked at snap counts and to see who Chubb would be slotted in for. It looks like it's like a combination of Ingram and Van Ginkel that have been lining up on the other side. I'm hoping this is 80% Phillips, Chubb, but yeah, it's not related to my team at all.
Probably going to see a lot. Maybe Melvin more on run, like third and shorts, but I would definitely expect to see Phillips more on the pass rushing snaps with Chubb.
So yeah, I'm a buyer. I don't have many picks left, so right now I technically have a surplus of running back, and I'm in discussions on a couple of them. Gabe Davis is always available, as you guys know. And yeah, that's about it for the team.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that I can see from a points perspective is the end. But again, before I keep saying that for everybody, I'm just going to try and take a look at who's even available for potential sellers. Sam Hubbard or something like that from San Francisco might be a possibility. And
Hubbard's priced pretty highly.
Yeah, he's going to be expensive.
Yeah, so in terms of cap space here, stuff like that, it's good. That's probably going to be like.
Yeah, I was talking about actual draft capital.
Oh yeah,
asking prices.
Asking price, yep.
Yeah, Trayvon Walker is top 15 D end and on his rookie deal, obviously. Let's see who else might be sellers. I mean, Bose is on here, but that's going to cost you 2 arms, a leg, and your left nut. Madubuike is on here, top 25 guy that I think Carolina's selling, so he could be an option. So, again, there are some options and items that could be for sale. The challenge is who's scoring enough to be helpful, but that you can actually fit in your cap without, giving up the farm. So I think, again, that's a nice to do, but tough to do with a third and fourth as your primary ammo.
And that's where I, might end up being where I sell offense for defense, which I don't normally do, but could be the scenario at trade deadline.
Yep. I don't know how someone would fit it cap-wise, but the Jags have Danico Autry at that $13 million.
I have looked at him
somewhat, but he's very boom bust. But it's if you need just another guy, like a third guy.
Yep.
He's obviously producing better than a third guy, but he would not be bad to have a rotation of 3 dudes.
Yep. So I'm going to cover the AFC South as one glob of a team here because we know what Texans is doing.
Nope.
And the rest of it is a bit of a mystery to me. Colts bought a lot, giving up a lot of draft capital to do so, is 3-9, and now has started selling pieces that are scoring points for him. The Jags have gone from being a game out of first to 4-8, but has not actively been selling or positioning as a seller. So I don't know what's going on there. And then Titans came out, as you saw probably in chat this week, and said, I'm 9-3. I'm going to clinch my division next week. I'm selling everything. So we can cover them as both buyers and sellers in each of these situations, but I really don't know. I mean, I really can't treat anyone in the division as anything but a seller right now, just because that's what they said or what they should be doing. So if it's the Titans, I think, missing a running back, if you wanted to add something, that would be helpful. He has a lot of intriguing receivers. Mari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Cade Otton seems to be picking up more and more with snap count in Tampa. Could be interesting. And then could be one of those guys that either from a front four or a linebacker perspective, like a Leighton Vander Esch or Melvin Ingram or Alex Singleton. Singleton's going to be too expensive to move probably, but he could find himself being a dealer of pieces to somebody, but then he's going to win his division, and whoever ends up as wild card one says thank you very much and moves on to the next round of the playoffs. It's one of those that, I don't know, Chris, this might be something just to put on the commissioner list for consideration this year, but do you allow division winner second, third, and four to choose the wild card they play in instead of just going straight by seeding? I know that's not how the NFL does it, but at this point, it's almost like, whoever gets the 4 seed there gets a bye.
Can't help. Some teams are bad.
Again, I don't know. Just, a thought and something to consider in the commissioner office. So Jags, I think we've covered many a times across a couple of different podcasts here. Not going to move Mahomes, so I'm not even going to suggest that. But, Ridley just moved today in real life to the Jags. Watson's definitely a hold at this point. Judon's really seems to be the piece that may be worth moving here. I think the ask he's had has been a first or a elite receiver. So I don't know if that's something that's even in the cards for him, but that production at that contract is worth going to get if somebody can get it.
Well, there you go, Chris. Trade some of your offense for defense. There we go. St. Brown for Judon. Boom.
Yeah, great trade. I like it.
I wasn't listening, and then you mentioned me by name. I'm like, oh, I should pay attention, and then you say that. So I'm going to go back to looking at the screen and not actually listen to you guys.
No, the big thing for me is Jags Hilliard should be gone. Like Hilliard and Judon should not stay on that team. Like he should cash in on those two and just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Even if somebody's willing to give up something for Burkhead, a fourth or a fifth, and move some cap around. And
Sealer, isn't a sexy D end, but he's a non-zero D end. He gets you 3-4 points every week, period. So he's not horrible to just roster for the simple fact if you have bye weeks, this, that, or the other, he will not get you a 0.
He does a lot with the little amount of snaps that he gets. They prioritize all the more impressive names at D end over him, and somehow he still just has a decent floor.
All right, so moving to Colts. The name of the game here is defense. I'd say defense and Brian Robinson. Everyone loves the story of Brian Robinson. Has come back, has put up double-digit points 2 of the last 3 weeks. 8 carries, 20 points. Again, hasn't been super efficient in his rushes. If I can still cash out and get a first for him at this point, I jump at that chance. I think that was his sellout price to begin with, and based off of his second round draft value and his contract value, that's a reasonable thing to try and look for. But that looks like it's going to be a committee this year And if Rivera's gone next year, which every indication is he's probably going to be, who knows what running back's going to be in the old position there. So I'm trying to move off of Robinson, and then he's got a pretty good set of like Brad Chubb, Khalil Mack, JOK. He's not going to move Bosa, I don't think, or Trayvon. I think those are foundational pieces for him. But kind of linebacker and running back is what I would look at here.
I wouldn't be surprised if he just tries to get a refund for Walker. He gave up a first and a second for him. I'm pretty sure if someone offered him a first and a second, you could probably have Walker. Whether or not anyone would give up a first and a second for Walker is an entire conversation, but
Pardon me, I'm going to go ahead and send him an offer for Walker real fast of a first, and we'll see what happens.
The first.
But his team's kind of interesting. Miles Boykin for a rebuilding team if someone wants to buy low, because Pittsburgh's got a lot of issues. I doubt that they keep drafting receivers in the second round, and Boykin's on that roster right now, and I don't really know who competes for the number 3 spot because that's what Gunnar Ajwale, whatever his name is, Boykin, and some other guy I can't even remember, and then they have Calvin Austin on IR for the year. So it could be a buy low if there's still any believers of the Boykin out there.
How many points of Boykin's 16 aren't tackles on special teams? 2?
I never said it would. I don't think he would cost much. I'm just saying if there's a tanking, if there's a Broncos team out there that wanted to take a flyer on a receiver without giving up 4 first-rounders for him.
Well, I mean, sure, like he's great for a terrible team to take for free, but that's I liked him at one point, but it's just not there. And he's 26 already. Ooh.
All right. So then, last but not least, the Texans. The $29 million question for end of season for folks is Deshaun Watson is nearing his return. Between Watson, Philip Lindsay potentially with Hines getting moved, an intriguing role in Indianapolis, and then Robinson. And I guess Equinemius in some pieces here, although they just went and got a big guy in Claypool. There may be a couple of things that Texans can move here, one pretty big and a couple around the edges.
I talked to him about Robinson. He's a big Kentucky fan. I think you're going to have to pay up to get Wando.
Also, it kind of feels like Equinemius kind of just got replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Equinemius was getting a lot of dink and dunk stuff, a lot of stuff you see Claypool getting. So it feels like those are just going to go to Claypool now. Also, it's a Bears receiver. None of them are really that exciting to own.
That's true.
I'm interested to see if Daxton Hill gets a little bit of play with all the injuries and Cincinnati
He's
secondary.
going to be out for the year. So I'll be interested to see if they actually use him as a corner.
Yeah.
Well, they did last night. He went in as soon as what's his name went down.
That said, a safety playing corner snaps is not really what you want.
Weren't both of those safeties kind of
Hybrid, yeah.
Yeah, him
I-
and Britt Taylor or whatever.
No, Peter.
No, that's the one that went to Houston.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the two that
corner.
went to Washington or
Oh,
went
okay.
to Cincinnati. I mean,
Yeah, I think they were both kind of like considered hybrid players. But the depth piece now is like he's going to be playing corner snaps, right? So like he's not going to be in the box or anything. I think he's going to be playing on the outside.
I don't think he was
Yeah.
ever going to be a box guy, though, honestly.
I'm just looking at players on the roster and like somebody you can talk up and maybe make more than what you used in draft capital off of them.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the East. Start with the Dolphins. again, big thing here, if you wanted to try and cycle things, Barkley and Nuke seem to have completely rebuilt their value. I think he's got to keep those as pieces. Tight end, and the fact he has nobody on his team who scored over 30 is tough. And then everyone basically outside of Brian Burns at the end, even though he's got a ton. It's something that I'm going to say it probably over and over again because it happens to anyone who's a contender in this league. He needs another D end. So he does have probably a little bit more flexibility in terms of cap availability to go get somebody, especially since he's relying on Shelby Harris and his $14 million number at the position. If you included him in a deal with, I mean, that's the problem here is what do you give to get one of these guys that he hasn't already since he's moved his first. So I don't know if he has seconds, thirds, things like that he could pile together here to get back in the conversation. But
He has,
He has a second that I just sent him.
yeah, he has Titans
Yeah.
2023 second, his own
I'll
2023 third, Panthers third, Broncos
Yeah.
third, a fifth.
Kobe Dean would also probably spark interest in a lot of people. Probably not for the value he put into him, but for going forward. There might
Break
be
him
some
down
interest
to-
there. Yeah.
He has Dean.
Yeah, he drafted Dean 128.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
don't know
so-
why I got lost in the defensive ends. He has a lot of defensive ends that don't do anything.
Don't even see the field.
let's see
Yeah,
here.
this feels like one of those where he could probably exhaust like some of his thirds and seconds and like move some of these junk players into better players. I mean, I don't really know who he needs to go shopping for. But like a productive defensive end, I would say. I don't. If you guys want to believe in Shelby Harris, be my guest, but I don't.
No.
So I would want like if Dolphins is going to make a run, I think he wants Harris to be his DE3. So I think you kind of pay up, maybe use your seconds to go find a good defensive end.
Yeah, I just think that I don't know, because I was shopping around for DE depth for the last couple of weeks, and I think it's pretty. There's not a lot of interest in selling D ends, especially like for
Middling
non-premium- Yeah, for non-premium pieces.
Right. Yeah, that's also one of the reasons why I say I think it's better to just go to a selling team like Commanders or I don't know, maybe like Bears and try to buy one of their expensive defensive ends.
Yeah,
Oh no, Ogba's terrible this year. Never mind. Maybe don't go buy him.
Ogba's essentially getting replaced. He's on the way out.
I mean, he is the least efficient defensive lineman they have as far as like win rate.
All right. Anything else on the Dolphins?
Yeah, I'm
did you guys
shocked.
talk about the trade? I joined late.
We haven't gotten into the trades yet. We're just kind of going through each of the potential. Who's the buyer? Who are buyers? Who are sellers? If you're a buyer, what are you trying to buy? If you're sellers, what are you trying to get rid of?
Gotcha.
So let's go ahead into next. I guess that would be the Bills jumping back to from a 2-8 record to 4-8, going on a little run here. That if Dolphins isn't careful and Packers gets a few score corrections, this could be a much tighter race than I think anyone expected it to be. So after all that, did we lose the Giants again? I guess so.
Good one.
So looking at the Bills, I had them as a seller, but it seems like based off the state of their team, they may just be sort of refocusing. Pollard exploded, and that's probably going to be a nice thing that happens once every couple of every couple of weeks a year, especially if he's in that platoon role. McCaffrey and his role in San Francisco seems to be a good time to sell there. So,
Honestly, I really I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I really like the production that Pollard's been getting. Like I know that there's the the 5 and the 1 point game, but like just the solid consistent workload, like he can have an 8 for 6 and then still get the same amount of touches and come out for 86 yards. Like he has opportunities to fail, and like his position doesn't seem to be like losing ground to Zeke,
Mhm.
which is like really nice, because I don't know what he paid for him, but just a nice thing to have on a $6 million deal.
Yep, definitely.
And it probably does, like you said, it makes like moving McCaffrey a comfortable thing. Like you break him down into a wide receiver, and I don't know, maybe something on defense, maybe another like productive offensive player, a tight end. Ooh.
Yeah, very possibly. But I feel like that's kind of the move there. It seems like Schultz is starting to pick up some show in the Dallas passing game here with Prescott back. Miles Garrett is not there anymore. That's right. Cam Jordan has done well all year. I think there's some defensive pieces he may want to move off of as well.
I think the concern just comes with Schultz of his longevity in Dallas, and if he leaves Dallas, where he goes, because Hendershot's looking really good. He's only playing on the tag. Ferguson's been getting more and more snaps. They've rotated a lot of guys there, and they're paying a lot of people. And that's part of why Amari didn't stay, is they just didn't have the cap space. And I know the cap's going up, but at some point you can't pay everybody, and they've got to pay Diggs and Parsons in the future. So there's probably an opening for him to leave.
You can pay everybody, you just make goofy contracts.
The cap isn't real. Everybody knows that.
They pay somebody to make a mockery of it.
I gotta at least pretend the cap exists, because as a Cowboy fan, we got rid of Amari for a 5th, and I have to watch that. So that, hey, we're trying to buy Brandon Cooks. My name's Jerry Jones. We're gonna do something today. Let's get everybody excited on the radio, and then do nothing.
What's wrong with that?
It's Jerry Jones making me sad.
Yeah, I guess.
So looking at the Bills from like a perspective of selling stuff off, I think all the wide receivers could go. Maybe not Bateman, hold on to him, but like, don't you just get rid of Marvin Jones while he's still productive? So you're not the guy that's cutting him while he's retiring. Send him somewhere that's going to use him for the rest of his time, whatever 4th, 5th, 3rd round pick you can get for him. I think you can get a 3rd for him.
Definitely better to get something for those guys than nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah, Cam Jordan's another one. Like I like Cam Jordan, but just he's had one foot out for so long. Like
This is his last year, I believe. Doesn't he already have a broadcasting gig he's agreed to do next season?
I thought he's had one for years.
It might be. I feel like he told them that he was done at the end of this year, though. I could be wrong.
I know.
But I
know.
definitely don't think he's got much longer left.
Yeah, I remember he started making appearances when he was 29, because that was like, he's like, I'm almost 30. I need to start planning for what I'm going to do after football. And then we've just seen him on like Good Morning Football for 4 years.
All right, let's talk about the Jets. Also selling. Again, he's acquired a good bit of draft capital here. He's going to be probably, I'd say, he's definitely a top 10 pick. But because of some of his wins, he's probably not in the running to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks. So question is, does that give him kind of the running back or otherwise here? So with that in mind, at the trade deadline, does he take a shot at a quarterback he can stash, or an injured guy or something like that makes some sense to see, okay, does he land someplace? Like, for example, he's got $53 million in cap space. Could he take on a 3rd and take Baker Mayfield off of the Broncos? Seems like a logical thing to me, because likely he's not going to get any points. Baker's probably going to get another shot someplace. It could be one of those that just if he doesn't have anything else for his renegotiation, saves himself some cap, hangs on to Baker. If something works out, great. If not, he cuts him, pays $8 million. Plus he picks up a pick in the process. I think that's the kind of deal I'd be looking for here is see if there's some undervalued assets I can stash and use some of my $53 million in space to set myself up for next year.
Another thing is Tony. He should already been sold for the hype.
Yeah, I
There's
was gonna
gotta be
say that.
Because you got Devontae Smith, Garrett Wilson, and you got Jamison Williams coming back. Those three receivers, that should be essentially all you need, you would hope. And I don't think I'd be sitting around hoping that Kadarius Toney, who's only had 2 games ever where he wasn't on an injury report and played, would do anything for me. I'd rather swap him for whatever I could get out of the hype and use that to do anything else because he essentially has nothing else outside a receiver. And Breece Hall when he comes back next year. Or no, never mind. That's Seahawks. I'm crazy. Yeah. But yeah, he definitely needs the picks because he's got one position figured out. The rest of his team is droppable, essentially.
Agreed.
All right. And then we'll go quick with the Pats. They're sellers, and there's nothing to sell at this point except for Foster Moreau. But outside of that, the cupboard is bare.
Yep, stay put.
Keep doing what you're doing because you're doing it well.
Future home of CJ Stroud.
Indeed. All right, AFC West. We've got the Chargers here at 10-2, tied up with the Chiefs at 10-2. So probably needs to make a move, especially with midnight about to strike on Jacoby Brissett. Already picked up Henry in a previous deal with the Eagles. Devontae with 1 year left. The question is, what does he do there? Does he just hold him and franchise him and let him jump into that 30 mil range, or what goes on with that? I think the big thing there is, again, common theme, the end. Robertson Harris has not been what I think people expected him to be. He just picked up Ashawn. Can he pick up another option to at least give him some respectable scoring at the position? Because he doesn't really even have that right now. If he's got to hold off Goose or potentially bulk up to go through the North in the playoffs, that's the kind of deal he needs to make.
Yeah. I mean, I think the top priority right now is a quarterback, and then you look at the defensive ends. He's running out of assets, but he does have 2 things that he could at least move with Patterson and Lance. Oh, and Mitchell.
Yeah.
Is Mitchell done for the year?
No, he should come back.
Aiming to play week 10. Okay. So like Patterson, I don't really know what his value is. I know he's going to return. But I have question. I don't know what Atlanta's trying to do. So like I don't know if they're going to keep trying to let him be one of the focal points of the offense.
You mean the NFC South leading Atlanta Falcons?
I know they're leading, but I don't know. I don't know if they even believe it. So like it's just one of those things. Like, are they going to give the young guys more looks than they should? But like those 3 IR players could probably find him like solid defensive end, another quarterback, and I don't know. Does he really need anything else on offense? No. Needs a safety. No, not really. Yeah, just I don't know. Trade Trey Lance for a healthy quarterback and move probably the younger running back because he has a little bit more value for like a noteworthy defensive end. I mean, like I know it's not enjoyable to give up offense for defense, but like in that type of a scenario, I guess you have to give up the young, valuable one.
Probably. All right. Should we move over to the Chiefs?
If you want to.
It's a goose type of team, so lots of scoring, lots of depth on good contracts. So that's nothing to be super surprised about. Again, I'm sure he would, cite all sorts of facts of where I'm off base for this, but the end again seems to be something that he could potentially add one more. I know he's been trying to sell some of these folks, but he's being driven by Ekubaum, who is in a rotation in San Francisco. So that's proven pretty well for him at that price tag. But if he's got pieces, I want to try and add one more there. Other than that, it's normal, deep goose team. So, pick your poison, unfortunately.
Yeah, good team. I agree. Probably want like better defensive ends, but I don't know. You have this team, you're not too disappointed with it.
Yep.
I mean, hopefully Robert Quinn starts to be worth some of his real life and fantasy cap money after the trade. We'll see.
Does anyone else think whenever they hear Robert Quinn's name, Robert Quinn, Medicine Woman?
Yes. Every
Okay.
once in a while, it does pop into my head.
All right. Going slightly out of order here. Broncos are selling. They've basically already sold everything of value there, so nothing really to see there. Raiders, though, let's spend some time here. 7-5, but has already made a couple of moves today that they are pointing towards selling. Unfortunately, with a Week 14 bye and a struggling Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, he's probably not going to get much there, so he's likely forced to hold. The only other major piece I see that I could see him wanting to move off of or making sense to move off of is Mike Williams. $10.5 million contract. Likely when he has to get extended is going to jump into that mid sort of that 12, 13, $14 million range. So that's going to not be fun. But again, I think that piece could pull him back a couple of assets. Alec Pierce is emerging. Robbie Brown, if I could get anything for him, I would at this point. But just reacquire maybe some injured folks and maybe a pick or two for Mike Williams and try it again next year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's unreasonable to maybe try to turn some of the like higher end pieces into other things, but I don't think it's a pressing need. Also, yeah, with the Week 14 bye, it's kind of hard to move either of the like desirable running back or wide receiver because like the competitive teams probably aren't going to be buying at a premium because of the bye week.
Right. And again, I would love for him to move Jonathan Taylor. I can't acquire him. So maybe I would hate for him to move Jonathan Taylor until the 1 year is up. But
I'll throw him a terrible offer for you.
Excellent. Thank you. You guys are good friends. But all right. Anyone else in the AFC or should we move over to the NFC?
Let's get over to the NFC.
Okay. Since I feel like we've lost like half the podcast here, either to other things or something shiny. We'll go with the NFC North to start. Packers at this point seems well in the lead. I don't think I'm going to be able to catch him for the division. Again, very good looking offense, and the depth he's built at the position at receiver makes him even scarier. Mark Andrews has had some challenges, but I don't think with an elite option there you're going to do much to really shift that around. I wonder if there's something that defense that makes some sense, either as sort of a third linebacker to be sort of that flex option, or I know I've said D end often. If I had a drink every time I said D end, I would be under the table. But
it's a thing of need for just about everybody,
right?
Because there just isn't enough points to go around, and even when you look at the high scoring ones, it's a pretty quick drop off. Even on a weekly basis. So you are very much playing boom bust on just about every player at that position. So you need a good group of them. So you have multiple that boom at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Another defensive end. Safety like that. I don't like that group of safeties. Was Abram hurt for some? No, just not as productive as anticipated.
Yeah, so I think maybe one more around that on defense, and then maybe one more piece of offensive depth. Again, not big bucks, but like something small as another tight end. I don't know if he's even available, like a Conklin or something like that. Could be a good thing to do.
Yeah. In case Andrews has another one of those, was it like a 4-point week? Oh,
well,
a
yeah.
0.4 week. Yeah, in case he has another one of those, you want some other tight end. So I agree with that.
Yep. All right. Moving to my team. I've changed sides on whether I'm a buyer or seller more times than Robert Kardashian. So I'm going to go ahead and not go too deep into this. But right now I'm in the buyer camp. That said, I have an entire offense to buy, but I have 9 first-round picks to do it with.
Yeah, I'll throw in some opinions just so you're not stuck talking about yourself. I think finding running backs, like plural, would be a good idea. I think it's less pressing now that Edmonds is probably going to be at least a good portion of that running back committee, if not the focal, not the focal point, but the first guy like put out every week. Your wide receivers are really good from like a best ball perspective. Maybe if you get like one guy to like at the top of them, your tight ends have actually panned out pretty well. I'm not a big Ingram fan, so like that's kind of a surprise for me that he's so productive. So like I don't think that I don't know. You get one of the three, another one of the three-headed monster from like Indianapolis and be perfectly fine, or grab like a Foster Moreau type of player and be perfect. Defensive tackle solid. Defensive end is really good actually. I know that you don't have any of the like 70, 80, 100-point scorers, but like that's four that I'm like confident with, and LJ Collier. I mean, like he has the draft capital. I don't know how great he's going to be. Like I know he's just coming off of IR, but I don't know how much.
I got him for free off of waivers, so
right. So I can't really complain with that, especially at like 1.6 million. You'd pay more than that for a worse defensive end if there was any of them even in waivers, so or free agency. I think you need one more linebacker. You know, like I don't, regardless of what they do, another Bud Dupree type, like puts up points, but boom bust type of get you double digits or zero. But I think your team's really good for could be really good for the amount of picks that you have. You can buy a winning team and still have picks left over and your picks.
Well, we'll see. Trying to use those 9 first-round picks to make my offense competitive, but we'll see what ends up happening.
Right.
Moving over to the Bears, 6-6 has some pieces, but probably not really a playoff team, considering that even the teams that are trying to lose can't. I think there's an opportunity to maybe sell some hype, like with Claypool or some of his other pieces to recoup some draft capital. But I think it's shut it down. Your pick is bad enough that it's not going to be a top 10 probably. But at the same time, it's time to reposition for 24 to see if you can turn things around there.
Yep, I agree. Try to get younger. Turn McKissick into somebody younger. A couple of their players like that, but yeah.
And then Lions, the 2 pieces, Josh Palmer and Grant Delpit will be the 2 that could be interesting to try and move. I'm not sure if he will or not, but otherwise he's 0-12 and doing well to kind of drive his points down. those could be things that, again, Palmer's in a position without Allen being out that he may be able to be moved. He hasn't been able to really show off enough, I'd say, to make anyone feel comfortable he's got one of those roles going forward, especially with the way that Carter has stepped up. And then Delpit seems to be getting enough of a role in that Cleveland backfield to score enough points for those trying to fill in at safety. So I could see both of those moving off of Lions before the deadline.
Yep, I agree. And I agree those are probably the only two if I'm Lions that I'm shopping. You're in the winless teams, so no need to get drastically worse and just get rid of the older producers.
Falcons.
We have to talk about them.
Get a quarterback who's over 5'7".
Agreed.
Really, Waller's only scored 40 points this year. That is
he's terrible.
Great
He's not terrible. I'm being a smartass, but definitely probably want to add a lot more production at tight end.
That's all basically in the first 2 weeks. So
Davante Adams gets so many targets in that offense that everybody else's value is just completely fallen off.
Yep. And then D end, he's got a good stable. One more in the stable would not be a bad thing. Otherwise, I mean, that's fine. He's got enough depth at receiver, and he's got to pay enough of these guys that moving one of his receivers may make some sense. But who knows? 1.4 million in cap space, that could be future Brett's problem. Buccaneers, definitely a buyer. Nothing really super jumps out at me here. Already went and got Higbee, although his targets have dropped substantially off for the tear he was on to start the year, especially based off some drops. It's looking pretty good on defense. I'd say primarily, again, just kind of filling around the gaps, but he's looking pretty solid at this point.
I'd say a fourth wide receiver that isn't Braxton Berrios.
I love Braxton Berrios, so I'll take him back if you're selling him.
I love him too. I'm just saying, I don't know if you are that good of a team. I don't know if you're in love with him being your fourth best wide receiver. I think you want a second tight end, and that's about it.
Yeah. Moving over to Panthers, we'll go with the selling angle right now, even though he could probably be in the buy side as well. Hunt didn't get moved, so that's probably disappointing, but still productive value there. I think 10 million is not great, but not terrible. A running back contract, so that could be a good piece. A lot of pieces on this team. It's very much the James mentality of I'll move them if I get the right offer, but I'm fine sticking around till next year with these guys. The main thing I would say that may make sense is Madubuike, the D end in Baltimore. I think his natural position is D tackle, but MFL has him as a D end this year, so may make sense to take advantage of that. Rashaan Evans has a really good role in Atlanta. Whether he maintains that role next year is a question, so might want to get off of that. And then, other than that, it's, kind of holds at this point until next year, unless he gets blown away by an offer. So those seem to be the main pieces to sell, but there's a lot of good core pieces to build around here.
Yep, I agree.
Then Saints, as we've done with all 0-12 teams, we'll see if there's anything that jumps out. Pickett hasn't done enough that it'd be a sell low if you sell him, so wouldn't focus on that. There's definitely some defensive running and out here pieces that could be helpful, like Sam Williams, rookie, but has 50 points, and a lot of that is based off of his 2-sack performances last week. He's the kind of guy that it's could I flip him to a contender for since 215 he's going to want a first back or something like that. Is that something that he could move off of? Akeem Gaithier, potentially Ridgeway, San Francisco, D tackle, min salary 2 year, considering some of the injury there. So he's got some defensive pieces he may be able to use to pick up a little bit more draft capital, but otherwise, I'm thinking probably stay the course.
Yep, I agree.
All right, NFC least Giants 11-1. So there's not a lot that he can or should do with this team right now. He's got a lot of pieces that would be great to move, but he'd be selling low on them. So like if Denver had moved KJ Hamler, I think he would be a great piece to move. Otherwise, I don't think any of the receivers really make sense to. CEH, Gainwell, and Hubbard all have roles on their team, so having them next to Mixon gives you pretty much guaranteed points there. And then with Rousseau breaking out next to Garrett and then a bunch of other rotational options there, I think he's fine on the defensive side as well. So there's a reason he is one of the favorites in the NFC. So I wouldn't go too crazy with this. But again, I think you just be opportunistic. If there's a value that's there, that's fine. The only thing I may do is if there's a whoever Josh Allen's backup is, just go grab them just in case. They're not going to be expensive. You've got $12.5 million in cap space in 6 years. Like, just go grab them, stick them on your team. You've got the room. Better safe than sorry. All right.
Yes.
Running mostly solo here.
I'm sorry, I was zoned out for a second.
I'm here. We're alive.
Excellent.
You can go back to doing it solo.
Okay. So Commanders says they're selling. Again, a lot of pieces that would be helpful to contenders. Tua is rebounding. Tyreek, Mike Evans, Gibson, Cook. Again, this very may be a retool rather than a sell. But between the 4 or 5 main pieces in offense plus like a DeMarcus Lawrence, he should be able to get a haul if he wants it for DeMarcus Lawrence. A $3 million contract. Yes, Lawrence is a bit older at 30, but 110-point D end at $3 million per year locked in at D end is worth it. And then Leonard Williams has been injured for a better part of the year, but 40 points for the games he's played. If he wanted to turn this into picks or future assets, he's got the players to be able to go do it. It's a question of whether he's going to go put the offers out there or hope that folks come knocking on his door. Eagles selling has already started the process. I've liked the sales he's made. The question becomes Diggs and Najee. Najee's had a bit of a down year, so I can understand wanting to hang on there. But then like Corey Davis, Stephon Diggs, some of these guys who have performed well or could be major difference makers. Is there something there to break down a Diggs, considering he traded the 101 for him? So it's going to be a hell of a deal to get him off the team. But something like that. And then Tannehill had a scare where Willis came in. Willis did not do shit this week, so I don't think anyone's going to expect him to hang on to that job. But Tannehill's definitely getting some scares in terms of hanging on to his job.
I mean, I would like to respectably bow out of the playoff race and acquire some picks and younger players, if that's possible. Don't know how possible it's going to be, but I'd sell just about anything at this point. I think Ryan Tannehill's a decent rental for like a reasonable price. Like, so you're not going out and trying to buy like a Deshaun Watson type of player.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to go out and find some random Washington quarterback and you don't want to pay up for Watson, I think Tannehill's like the nice in between on that. I don't really need to get rid of Najee or Dillon, but like the older players, Diggs, Davis, some of my defensive players, I'd love to get rid of them. At least get younger, if not turn them into draft picks.
Yep. The other pieces, so talking Cowboys now, I think the things that would be interesting is if he moved off of Henderson. Again, he's definitely rebuilding. I'm not going to suggest he move Micah, although I would be interested in what the return on a deal like that would be. But, I mean, those would be the only two. TJ Watt we've talked about, but, he's probably just going to stay on IR for the year. So nothing to see there. Granted, I think if he's coming back in that week 11, 12, 13 range, that's right in terms of playoff range for a contender. Would a contender be interested in throwing something in to get Watt, pay him when he needs to, and then have him sit on the IR for a couple of weeks to be ready for the playoffs and be an extra 20 points off the bench? Who knows? I don't even know if he can make the contracts work, but it's a fun idea to think about. Rams are buyers. Already did some buying to get Aaron Jones back on the team today. Shipping out Marquise Brown to be able to get the pick to do so. Needs another receiver, though. Nelson Aguilar hasn't done much in weeks. But most of them may have an opportunity with Parker missing time, but desperately need some receivers. Whether that's just scrounging the waiver wire or otherwise, that's got to be what you do there. Cardinals. A little bit of luck would be helpful. Wilson getting a new home should give him some opportunity in Miami, although it may take him a week or two to get up to speed there. Rest of the running backs getting roles, and Walker seems to really be coming on strong. Jefferson, good receiver there with Mooney, so maybe another receiver to add to that, although Thornton coming back could potentially do that organically. And then just this general problem of defense for him.
Yeah, he needs to buy a lot of defense if he wants to be serious about competing. But does he make it even to playoffs? I mean, Eagles is trying to bow out, but
so he wouldn't make it as a wild card, but he's a game behind the Rams.
You're okay. So he's fighting for the division win.
So yeah,
nothing.
So if I look at the schedule,
he could turn Kenneth Walker into most of my offense, and then we could just swap spots in the playoffs.
So the Cardinals and Rams split. So at this point, he could make up he's got to make up the win, but he's going to need some help from either the 49ers or Seahawks to not lose the divisional tiebreaker, or else he's got to pick up 2 wins.
Yep.
49ers is probably in sell mode at this point. Mariota is somebody I would be moving if I could. 13.2 and probably doesn't hold on to the job once Atlanta starts losing, picking up some value there. McKinnon looked like he was going to compete for that KC job. Who knows if that comes back around. Then just kind of receivers who haven't broken out, who are good best ball receivers that he could probably fetch some return on right now. Queen's in a bit of a tough spot with them just getting Roquan. So we'll see what happens there. But I think he's got some pieces that he can shift around here and make himself ready to kind of jump off again next year.
Yeah,
I agree. Seahawks has already gotten rid of most of the points he can get rid of. At this point, he's already listed a bunch of defenders that he'd like to move the points off his team for picks. So if you're looking for defensive help, go talk to Seahawks. So that's everybody. That's an hour and 10 minutes, and I think I put everyone to sleep. We no longer have any people watching. I've bored everybody out of all the excitement for the trade deadline, so I think folks are ready to not have me recount all of the past trades. Maybe we'll do that as a post-deadline pod to cover both the trades from last week and then the trades up to the deadline, and do that as a mega trade deadline, post-trade line pod. we'll get to kind of the negotiation part of the conversation. So if you are sticking with us and they're just not showing up, if you're doing so, we'll post something in chat saying we're post-pod so folks can rejoin and we can get into the business side. But enjoy it because there's a lot of teams buying, a lot of teams selling. It could be a really fun race depending on how some of these rosters shake out here. So at the end of the day, enjoy.